Hi guys! Hi guys! Hi from the Spider-Man. So you see that I have got apparently two faces. Do you know there is someone else like that who's got two faces? His name is Janus. He is the Greek god. On his name, we have some words in English that have two opposite meanings. Okay, the word naughty, it can mean something nice and it can also mean someone very notorious. In this lesson with me, Michelle, you are learning Janus words, words that have opposite meanings. So please join me. I bet you'll have great fun. So guys, here we have some words that can mean entirely different, entirely opposite, not just different. So let's look at the first word that we have with us on the board. To cleave to something or to cleave something, it can have two meanings. When you cleave something, you cut it. Essentially, you cut wood. So cutting the wood is called cleaving the wood. That's the first meaning. To cut the wood. So you could say that he was cleaving the wood, but it can have an entirely opposite meaning. Instead of cutting, you can cling to something or you can hold tight to something. So to cleave to something means to hold tight to it. In certain cases, your principles that you have for your life, you could say that I always cleave to my principles, which means you always follow your principles. So to cling to something. Haven't they got entirely different meanings? Let's see the second one that we have, to hew something. Now, hew is a synonym for cleave and it has the similar opposite meanings. The first meaning of hew is to cut the wood. So whenever you see a lumberjack, he's cutting the wood, which means he is hewing the wood. Again, the same meaning, to cut the wood. Right. But what is the other meaning? Now, hew also means that you adhere to something, you adhere to particular principles or a set of principles that you follow. So if you want to use this word for someone else, you could say that the politician hews to the principles of his party, or the politician hews to the party policies, which means to adhere, that is to follow something. So cutting and following are definitely opposite meanings. You know, English is quite double-faced. Trust me on that. The next word that we have is a sanction. So have you heard this word before? Which meaning of the word do you know? So most often we use the word sanction when we are talking about something which is formally approved of. So these days, as we know that a lot of nations are sanctioning gay marriages, which means that they are approving gay marriages. So that is formal approval. So you could use it in a sentence by saying, so-and-so country, or maybe the UK, is now sanctioning gay marriages. But it has an entirely different meaning as well. It can mean to impose a ban, which is entirely different from allowing something. It's just opposite. So when you impose a ban on something, you could say that you're sanctioning it. So for an example, right now, US is not ready to lift up its sanctions against North Korea because of the nuclear incident that happened recently. So that way, it's not ready to lift up the ban or it's not ready to lift up the sanctions. To impose official ban. Funny, isn't it? So very opposite. Let's look at the next one that we have. To scan something. So scanning can also mean two things. First, what we mean by scan is to look carefully for every detail, right? So what happens when there's a murder and the police comes in? They scan the room for any signs that they can find, to find out who murdered. So they scan the room or they look for carefully throughout the room. So the first meaning is to look very carefully for every detail. You could use it in a sentence by saying that the captain scanned the horizon with the binoculars. but it can have an entirely different meaning as well. Scanning can mean to have a quick look at something. So, recently I was having some problems and I got some blood tests done. And as soon as I got the reports, I was reading them and I was scanning them, which means I was looking very carefully that what's going to happen, what are the details. And then I took the report to my doctor and she just scanned through it, which means she quickly looked through it. I also scanned through it, but I scanned through very carefully with details, but she scanned through with just a glance. So when you have a glance, to have a glance, so the doctor scanned through the report quickly. Now let's come to the next one, which is surely the most combustible word in this whole lesson. Combustible means something that can easily catch fire, and that's exactly what this word means, which comes from the word flame, right? But you do not call that word inflammable, you call this word as inflammable. So inflammable is something that can easily catch fire. Easily catch fire. So if you've ever looked at the description that you have on deodorants, you'd read that deodorants are highly inflammable, which means they can easily catch fire. But here's the catch. Let's look at this word. This word is incomplete, which is the opposite for complete. And this word only, in, these two letters make it an opposite for complete. So these two words have the power to make a negative of any word. Now, if we separate this and this, if we say it's inflammable, it can also mean that it's not flammable. It can mean just the opposite. Like for complete, if we say incomplete, which means it's not complete. So inflammable could be something which is not flammable or not combustible. And if you actually go with the wrong meaning, I'm sure you'll end up burning something or someone. So be careful about which meaning it is carrying whenever you're reading something. Mostly it is something that will easily catch fire. Now let's quickly look at the other four words that we've got. To trip, to trip, we all love going for a trip, but sometimes we can just trip, which means we can fall. While you're walking, if you suddenly stumble or catch your foot upon something, maybe there's something on the ground or toy or something, and you just stumble over the toy, that means you trip over the toy, which means to stumble. So if we say that he stumbled or he tripped, which means is that he fell down. So we could say that he stumbled over the toy, or he stumbled over the glass, or he tripped over the glass. But trip can have an entirely different meaning again. And as a verb, it can have a different meaning. So to trip means to walk very carelessly. When you're so happy and you walk very nimbly, nimbly means very softly with light feet. So if you're just like going around the room like this without thinking anything serious, that's when you're tripping in the room. So if you see somebody going in the room just carelessly, thoughtlessly, you could say that she is tripping around the room joyfully. So to go around thoughtlessly or to walk nimbly. So these are just opposite meanings. Either you stumble or you walk thoughtlessly. Okay, the next one that we have is an oversight. This is the most tricky word that you can possibly have, and let me tell you, even John F. Kennedy got it wrong in his speech. So oversight means to look at something with supervision, to look at something very carefully. So a watchman is having an oversight, which is a careful supervision over a building. So oversight can mean a careful supervision. Right, so you could say that the watchman was having an oversight over the organization, which means he was looking carefully at the organization. But that's not all. Oversight can also mean to make some errors by not being careful. So this one, careful supervision, and the other is to make errors by not being careful. So as for me, the other day I was reading my bank statement and it was full of oversights. It had so many errors and mistakes. Why? Because the person who drafted the bank statement, he did not draft it very carefully. So these are two very opposite meanings. The second last that we have, these two have also entered. So Mr. Janus, the Greek god, has also entered the slang world, and he's got a hold of the word bad. So bad actually means good. Bad things are good sometimes. So if you say that that's a bad t-shirt, if a native speaker tells you that, trust me, he could also mean that it's a good t-shirt. Sometimes bad is used in its intensity to mean something good. Sometimes something very good or wonderful. But you have to understand contextually that what the person is saying, does he actually mean the negative meaning or the positive meaning? The final one that we have is something very wicked. So I had a wicked time teaching you this lesson. Does that mean I had a very evil time? No. So wicked actually means evil, something which is truly evil, but I sure didn't have an evil time teaching you this lesson, but instead I had a wonderful time. So wicked means to have a wonderful time or to have a great time doing something. A wonderful experience. Wicked can also be used as an intensifier when you can say that, oh, come on, that was wicked cool, which means it was extremely cool or it was very cool. Now, this is a very new one, and I'm sure you would love to have that in your vocabulary. And why only this word? All these words are surely going to pimp your vocabulary, add to your vocabulary, and you can go out there, be wicked and be good, be bad and be nice at the same time. Double-faced like Mr. Janus. I hope you had fun like I had promised you in the beginning of the lesson. Come back for more lessons with me. This is Michelle signing off. Bye-bye.